So welcome everybody. You are muted for right now. I'm Mary Jo Daniel. I'm one of the co-PIs on Advance, and we welcome you to our first video panel of the month here. And I'm going to turn it over to Julia, our project director, to start us off.
So welcome everybody. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. So welcome. As Mary Jo said, I'm the director of Advance at UNM. This collaborative workshop is a collaboration between Advance at UNM and the Faculty Research Development Office. And as a sign of how quickly things change, obviously we've had to move from an in-person to a Zoom workshop. When we first moved to Zoom, Sandia was allowed to use it, but now the Sandia panelists are only allowed to do Zoom by audio. So I thank everyone for sticking with us through all of the format changes. And I want to make sure and thank now all of the panelists and all of you who are participating and listening or watching, and particularly Mary Jo, who's done a great deal of work to initially pull this together and keep it pulled together, along with Diane Peebles, who's been a really great ally in helping figure out how to do this. So thank you, everyone. A reminder, we'll be recording this to post on the Advance website and YouTube channel, and I'll turn it back to Mary Jo.
Okay, so in advance, with any apologies for messing up, we are going to start with an introduction of all of our panelists. And let me just move one thing at a time. I'm gonna, let's see. Okay, so Diane, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Diane Peebles, and I am with Sandia National Labs with the title of New Mexico Partnerships Manager. And my role is to help facilitate relationships between the university and Sandia. Thank
you. Dave?
Yes, I'm Dave Hansen. I'm a biology faculty member at the University of New Mexico, plant biologist, but I've done some work on bioenergy and with microsensors with folks at Sandia.
Okay, Jason?
I'm a principal member of technical staff at Sandia National Laboratories, and I work in power systems, power electronics.
Okay. Let's see, Miko?
Miko Oishi. I'm an associate professor in electrical and computing engineering here at UNM. I work in control theory and autonomous systems.
Thank you. Ed?
Hi, I'm Ed Mateo. I'm a principal member of staff at Sandia National Labs. I'm a geosciences engineer, and as such, I work on a bunch of subsurface engineering applications, wellbore integrity, nuclear waste disposal, and I specialize in barrier materials. So I like cement and I like clays.
Okay. And Hong Yu?
I'm Hong Yu Fan, distinguished member of technical staff at the Sandia National Lab. And I'm also holding a National Lab professor title through Chemical Engineering Department. And my background is material science, material chemist. And research focus on fabrication of nanomaterials for sensing and energy application.
Okay, thank you. And so those are our panelists, and let me switch screens here and we'll see if we can get it to work just the way we want. Diane, are you seeing your, pardon me? I'm having trouble hearing you, Diane.
Oh, I haven't said anything yet, so.
Oh, okay. Are we seeing yours yet? Okay, then hold on.
Are we
Oh,
good?
you can't see it. That's right. Julia.
I can't see him, so.
That's right. Hold on just a second. Nope, we're looking at the wrong thing. There we go. Now we are seeing your slides, Diane. And
okay.
Okay.
Are we ready?
I think so. At this point, everybody with the is muted, and you're going to unfortunately stay that way for a little while until we get to a discussion point. So Julia, I'm just going to check with you. You can see the screen okay? You can see the engaging with Sandia National Laboratories?
Yes, it's got the right display.
Thank you very much. Take it away, Diane.
Okay, we welcome you all here today. We're happy to have the chance to talk about opportunities to engage with Sandia and happy to facilitate those engagements. UNM holds a special place in our heart. Not only is it close by, but UNM is one of our academic alliance schools. Sandia has 5 academic alliance schools: UNM, University of Texas at Austin, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Purdue, and Georgia Tech. So those 5 universities we pay a lot of attention to, and we put a lot of investment in. Those universities were chosen for a variety of different factors, but they are the primary universities that Sandia invests with on a day-to-day basis. So for each of these universities, we have a dedicated executive at Sandia who is responsible for being campus for that school. For UNM, that person is Carol Adkins. And we also have a dedicated team with a manager that's focused on each campus as their full-time job. So it's my responsibility to manage the relationships with UNM. And I have a team that we'll talk about at the end that helps me do that. We have 3 goals within the Academic Alliance program. One is to facilitate collaborations that neither institution could do on their own, and to help facilitate inter-school collaborations as well. The second is to increase our hiring pipeline from each of these schools by having a bigger presence on campus in terms of interacting with student organizations and one-on-one connections with faculty and students. And the third goal is to help get ideas from that initial idea into commercialization at a more rapid pace. The universities are much better at translating ideas into actual commercial products than Sandia is as a national lab. And so that's one of the great benefits of our partnership. So if you'll go on to the next slide.
I did.
You should have up now a table of the focus areas with UNM and points of contact. These focus areas are the ones that we have identified as the ones where we want to put our most effort into developing with UNM. It doesn't mean that we don't want to engage in any other topic. It just means that for these areas, we're trying to develop some strategic opportunities. And what you'll see, there are listed points of contact from both the university side and the Sandia side with emails for both, so that if you have an interest in these areas, you can work through those contacts to help get collaboration ideas started and identify potential collaborators at either institution. So those are the areas that we are focusing our, I'm going to say, intensive efforts on, but as I said, please don't let that restrict you, because we aren't restricting any collaboration in any subject area. We just don't have designated points of contact and specific processes and strategies set up for other areas. Go ahead and proceed. So what you should have now is a list of some of the possible pathways for engaging in collaborations between Sandia and UNM. We do offer once every 6 to 8 weeks a Sandia Research Spotlight Forum, which is held down at Lobo Rainforest and is a half-day engagement with a different technical topic each time, where we have program managers and staff members from Sandia come in and talk about the research that Sandia is interested in that area, and have faculty from not only UNM, but also the other New Mexico schools and our other academic alliance schools talk about how their areas might overlap. And we have a lot of networking time spent to try and develop collaborations in that specific subject area with each meeting. We have a series of these available on Sandia's external website, or the slides from the past events, so that even if you weren't able to attend a particular Spotlight forum, the slides are available for you to have access to and follow up on as well. We always welcome faculty seminars at Sandia. If you are interested, if you don't have someone to reach out directly to at Sandia to talk about that, please feel free to reach out to me. It's a good way for Sandians to learn about your research areas and see what connections we can make. We always can ask faculty to consider sabbaticals or summer visits to Sandia. This summer may be an exception. That remains to be seen, but we typically have a fair number of faculty and students on our campus for the summer, and we enjoy the research opportunities that brings. Collaboration with in-kind research activities is often a way to start relationships where you might have a common point of focus with someone at Sandia, and you each agree to look at a particular point of that from your own perspective and perhaps do a collaborative paper at the end of that. That can also often lead to funded research projects. The next kind of step up is collaborative research projects where Sandia would fund the research going on at UNM. These are most often started through our laboratory-directed research and development program, which is our internal research program, and that is the process that I'll talk to you in a minute that we're going through right now. We hope that those LDRD research projects actually serve as a footstep to more focused engagement in the future and an ongoing basis through direct project funding or through strategic new funding proposals from external agencies that are joint collaboration projects. So this runs all the way from that initial who's doing what up to full-scale external proposals that bring funding into both institutions for our work. So feel free to explore engaging anywhere across that spectrum. We do a considerable amount of business in every one of those areas. So next slide, please. So what you have here is a flow chart of our LDRD process. As I said, this is our laboratory-directed research and development. This is an internal staff-driven process. Staff present their ideas. Those ideas are down selected to a small number, and then those are submitted to full proposals. Those are again reviewed, and a final number of projects are selected to be funded. At this point, I think the number is that staff submitted on the order of almost 800 LDRD ideas. Those were down selected to about 300 that have been asked to submit full proposals. In the end, the actual number of projects funded will be about half of that. So that gives you kind of the cut down at each of those steps. We encourage university engagement clear across this entire process. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the university side. The universities can collaborate in what we call either the core LDRD or a supplemental LDRD that goes with it. So in the core proposal, if the collaboration with the university is critical to the success of that project, typically with an established relationship, then they will simply be written into funding in the core LDRD, and if that LDRD is awarded, then that partnership is automatically covered as well. If that relationship is new, it's exploratory, it's not something that directly supports the goals of the LDRD, but represents an aspect to broaden and extend the applications of the LDRD, then we can consider an academic alliance supplemental proposal. Those proposals are submitted at the same time. The core proposals are submitted, but they are evaluated in a different process. And selection of the core LDRD does not guarantee selection of the supplemental proposal because it is a different selection process. Right now in our phase, we are in that full proposal phase as shown by the red box. Our ideas have been down selected and staff are busy working on their full proposals. So this is a chance to have that last chance to engage for the core proposals. And hopefully some of you are engaged in discussions to help make that happen. There is an additional possibility for UNM, and it's something that we call our ACORN proposals. It's Accelerated Collaborative Research Nucleus, and those are proposals that are sent out to facilitate research collaboration between new staff at Sandia and new faculty at the university. So in those cases, we wait to see what LDRD projects are awarded at the corporate level. We go through and select from those the ones that match our technical focus area needs at the university, and look for Sandia PIs that have been at the labs for less than 5 years. And then we send those proposal ideas out to UNM to have for consideration for faculty who have been on roll for less than 5 years at the university as well. And that also is a separate selection process as well. So I'll be happy to chat with any of you in greater extent about our LDRD process. We see the LDRD as a stepping stone to start collaborations. And as we mentioned, we hope that those go on to collaboration on our core mission projects as well as externally funded proposals. Next slide, please. So this is the final slide. This is the team of folks we have at Sandia who are dedicated to the UNM relationships. So you have myself as the New Mexico Partnerships Manager, and I am always happy to be your first point of contact, and I can get you connected to whoever you need to be connected to. As I said, Carol Adkins is our campus executive. She is a director at Sandia and is a very involved director. She engages very strongly with UNM. We have a partnership development staff member supporting us for UNM, and that is Linnea Sands, and an administrative support person, Stephanie Gallegos. Teresa Cordova is our technical recruiting lead to help get students connected to job possibilities at Sandia. And Yolanda Marino works with us in terms of LDRDs and processes and institutional documentation. So that team is all available to help us make things happen between UNM and Sandia. And hopefully I've given you a little bit of an overview of some of the things that we can do. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Diane. What we're going to do at this point is each of the panelists is going to take just a few minutes to talk about their experience in collaborating with, whether they're at UNM with Sandia and if they're at Sandia with UNM, and some of the benefits they see to collaboration as well as the challenges that they've encountered. So pretty randomly, I'm going to ask Dave Hansen to get us started.
All right. So you can hear me? Yeah, good. Okay, great. For me, I've been here now 17, almost 18 years, and have been doing a wide range of sort of interactions with Sandia. I started out with what were called Sandia University Research Projects or something like that, SERPs, which are kind of like, sound kind of like what the ACORN stuff is that Diane just mentioned now, which is a really great way to get some interactions going and learning who to work with out there. That's probably the first biggest challenge I would say is just understanding who's doing what at Sandia, in which groups, and starting to have conversations about what's going on, where interests overlap. I've also done a range of things with several sources of funding. We have both currently ARPA-E funding that's sort of joint with Sandia and UNM, so they get separate contracts but going to each place. And then the same thing with the Department of Energy bioimaging funding that is one grant. It's funding both, and I've worked on some of that in the past. Some of those have been ones that have been primarily lab calls that have gone to the where the lab has to be the lead, and then a university can be a partner for some small portion, and then the other ones where it's a DOE university call and the lab can be some small partner. I have had some challenges in that latter area where I want to have a Sandia partner as a small partner on a university grant, or I should say a national lab partner, and it needed. I guess it was at Brookhaven where they weren't focusing on, Brookhaven wasn't set up to be a primary research area for the person I wanted to work with, and so DOE didn't really want to give them any money, and so that could happen. I could see at Sandia too if it's not a major focus of that lab's tasks. And then some of the collaborations that have been mostly with people here at in Albuquerque, but some significant team members have been out in Livermore, and that still usually works really well. We've had several students, which we have either sort of co-advised, which I found that to be very useful with Sandia, where students will do some part of a project there, or we'll have a Sandia member on a committee. One of the big things with that is because of some of the way the graduate school requirements have been, in order to have faculty from Sandia or from a national lab be on my committee, students committees, or a co-advisor or something, I need to make them adjunct faculty at UNM first, which isn't hard in my department, but is a step to jump through. But it's been a nice way to keep them have those faculty staff at Sandia interact well and be integrated in the lab. Some of my students have also had fellowships, or currently have a student with a fellowship who is doing that work out at Sandia National Labs, and that's very useful. We have also some joint IP with Sandia National Labs, and that is a nice thing to pursue, to get to at the technology and develop that. A lot of Sandia technologies with us, though there are challenges with IP interactions that we can talk about if people want to hear more.
Thank you, Dave. Let's go to Jason.
My relationship with UNM, I would say, sort of built slowly over time in advance of actually doing collaborative research projects. At first, I was primarily interfacing with professors and students through the local IEEE chapter. And then I would work with some students that were student interns at UNM. And then I actually taught a class at UNM as an adjunct, and got a little bit more familiar with some of the faculty there. It wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I worked with UNM on a academic alliance project that was funded by the LDRD department, and as a sort of an addition to a Grand Challenge LDRD. And that actually resulted in quite a bit of progress on that project. It included also some circuit development that one of the students who was working on that at Sandia created some prototypes that eventually became that student's master's thesis topic that I co-advised his master thesis. It also turned into a couple of additional projects that are still ongoing today. So it was a massively successful endeavor that all kind of sprung from one engagement and sort of cascaded and turned into multiple projects. Currently, I don't have any LDRD collaborative projects with UNM. However, I do work with them through some additional projects that include RPE-funded projects. I think one of the main benefits of working with UNM is not just getting the expertise of the professors and of the students, but also actually building a relationship with students that eventually come to work at Sandia. So one of those students who I mentioned, who I co-advised his master's thesis on, he actually remains a remote year-round graduate student. He's currently going to Virginia Tech, but he's one that we're trying to sort of pipeline into Sandia when he completes his PhD. When I taught the course a few years ago, that also identified a few interns that were very valuable as well, and it also motivated me to sponsor a few capstone projects. So for the last 3 years or so, I've tried to identify capstone projects either for Sandia or for Sandia and the local IEEE chapter in power and energy systems, and identify students that that are high performers from that work. And so that's resulted in at least 3 interns then coming to Sandia after those projects were completed. A couple of those projects also got the Sandia and UNM Solar Splash team in the newspaper when they performed really well a few years back. Solar Splash is a intercollegiate competition that involves building a solar-powered boat, which is a little out of character for a very desert state. But so my relationship with UNM has really kind of cross-cut a lot of different interaction, schemes. But I find that probably the main benefit is generating relationships with students and identifying students that would be a good fit for eventually working with Sandia.
Thank you, Jason. And just for everybody who's listening, we are going to have an opportunity for you to ask questions, so I hope you're keeping note in your own mind. You can also use the group chat feature, and we'll look at that as well. Let's go back to UNM, to Miko Oishi, and you can tell us a little bit about your collaborations.
Sure. So I have an active LDRD right now. I'm in my 3rd year and final year of the LDRD with John Richards. This is something that John came to me with after he had been awarded his LDRD. One of the enormous and unexpected perks of working with Sandia is that it's been a really nice opportunity to explore further collaborations with Sandia. And it also involved fairly little effort on my part to get this going. I was very fortunate in that. John Richards had contacted me because Alex Raisler was spinning up his autonomy initiative at the time and was looking for ways to get me involved. This project unexpectedly became a 3-year LDRD, and I ended up writing just about a page and a half in total to be able to get the funding associated with it. So it's been a nice opportunity. One of the main benefits, I think, of having funds from Sandia is that it complements NSF funding very nicely, not only because it provides an opportunity for summer salary, but also for postdoc funding as well, which can be hard fought through standard NSF routes. It was also, the other benefit about it is that it's intentionally open-ended in that we're not solving a specific problem. We're not tasked with building a widget. We're supposed to be doing basic research related to the main concept associated with the LDRD. And so it was very natural to align it with ongoing efforts in my group. I've had a couple of other interactions as well with the LDRD program. I got pulled into somebody else's grant. Professor Rafael Fierro, one of my senior colleagues in ECE, had a 1-year LDRD with some other folks, Stephen Berger and others in the robotics group. And so that was a nice opportunity as well to be introduced to a different part of Sandia that I hadn't gotten to know earlier. Right now, I have 2 graduate students who are year-round interns at Sandia. And they were in different organizations, but they've actually ended up getting pulled into the group that I'm working with through this LDRD, which is nice because it lets them see different aspects of the types of projects that we're working on. Obviously, there's, they do their work at Sandia, that's a Sandia specific project, and then they come to UNM and they do more generic work. And so I think it's very beneficial for students as well. I think that about summarizes it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miko. Let's hear from, let's see, I have to remember who I haven't heard from. Edward.
Okay, so I've been at Sandia for just about 10 years. unique aspect of my background is that I did my undergraduate degree in chemical engineering at UNM, and I was also a Sandia undergraduate year-round intern at that time. I went to graduate school and then returned to Sandia as a postdoc in 2011. And that's when my collaborations with UNM began on a bit of randomness or by happenstance. I was contacted by some UNM professors who wanted to write a proposal for the National Energy Technology Lab that happened to be in an area that I did my PhD dissertation in, which was for wellbore integrity. And UNM was the lead on the proposal, and it got funded. And so that was sort of a very easy introduction into collaborating with UNM. So we had that project for 3 years, and then I was awarded what's now called the Earth Sciences Research Foundation, but at the time was the Geosciences Research Foundation, LDRD, that built off of some of the concepts in synthesizing nanomaterials for wellbore repair. So we funded that project out of the core for the first year, because actually the Academic Alliance program didn't exist at that time. And in the second year of the LDRD, they rolled out the Academic Alliance program, and so we applied and we were awarded Academic Alliance. So I do have that background of funding projects with UNM, both out of the core with a university subcontract, well, they both have subcontracts, and also the Academic Alliance. And there are actually some subtle differences, so if anyone has questions, I'm happy to speak to those things. And then let's see what else is relevant. So I have another LDRD now where we're again doing the core, out of the core funded type of funding mechanism. I think the most important thing to understand about Sandia is almost kind of like from a customer discovery perspective is what are Sandia's pain points, in quotes, but what does Sandia value? And I think that's important for UNM faculty to understand. It's not that different. I mean, it's probably generic, but a lot of Sandia LDRD mission spaces or research foundations like publications, so that's obvious. They also really value student and early career staff development. So as Dave and others have spoken about, and Miko, sharing students between the institutions, that's very good. And I think it's good when you to have Sandians on committees, because then it's something that the Sandia PI can report in their quarterly or yearly reporting as, participation in student PhD or master's thesis committee. Another thing I should speak to is intellectual property. So we've been fortunate that we've filed several non-provisional patents across all these different projects, 3 or 4 at least, which is beneficial on both sides at Sandia and at UNM. And we filed them through STC. And somebody mentioned this, I can't remember, maybe it was Diane. There are a lot of benefits depending on the technology and depending on the commercialization space. And so I have other intellectual property that we wouldn't have wanted to go through STC for, because the perceived difference is that UNM tends to write their intellectual property a little bit more narrowly, and I've actually experienced this going through the process, and Sandia usually does a broader application space. But there are other pros to that. For example, we had this field repair material for wellbores, and this is a very international type of licensing space. So we elected to go through STC and have UNM lead it, because Sandia would have severe limitations in being able to license the intellectual property or the patent to a foreign entity. So that's just an example of how the IP space can play out. I guess, let me see if there's anything else. I made some notes. I guess the other, the U.S. citizenship requirements is something that is becoming, I would say, is becoming a con of working with Sandia for most people in academia. And that's a difference on the Academic Alliance. They have this requirement now where the any student supported at the university has to be a U.S. citizen. So I think that's an important challenge that we have to work with. The contract process is what it is. It's the same with other universities. The other thing I would mention is that the proximity effect is probably one of the biggest benefits, as Nico and Dave and Jason all mentioned, that students can go between the institutions because we're all in Albuquerque generally, and also we can have face-to-face. Well, prior to the last few months, we could have face-to-face meetings at regular intervals, and that I think really helps build the relationship and move the research forward. So I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you. And that takes us to Hangyu.
Hi, again, I'm Hangyu Fan at Sandia National Lab. So I've been collaborating with UNM for years, and through both core LDRD program and also Sandia Academic Align program. And and I'm working at the Advanced Material Laboratory, which is located on the campus of UNM. And so that's a very good facility that benefit both Sandia and UNM, that we have quite a lot or many UNM graduate or undergraduate students, and joined our collaborations through that facility. And so I think the benefit for the collaboration is that we can really leverage the UNM faculty strength and their expertise to develop Sandia and UNM collaborative research program. And also the students, I feel very important that to develop the pipelines for the Sandia National Lab. And I have several students joined Sandia after working year-round at AML for several years. That's a very good way to help Sandia to develop the pipeline staff members. And also, besides the Academic Align collaboration, I also have the National Lab professor position, is a joint position. So that allow me to develop long-term relations with UNM faculty members. And then we can work together for the NSF, NIH joint proposals. This is a special position that agreed by Sandia and UNM. So that really allowed me to work widely with several departments like chemistry department, chemical engineering department, and the School of Medicine. The other benefit I see that we can jointly file patents. That never has a problem for me. So I have quite a few joint patents in the past. The challenge I feel. I think Ed already mentioned that the requirement for the U.S. citizen for the faculty member and the students, it seems a big challenge because that we have a lot of foreign national students available, but when we come to the U.S. citizenship students, that's a challenge.
Okay, thank you. Let me just ask any of the panelists, do you want to add anything in response to anything that you heard from each other?
I do have a thing to add is that besides the Sandia Academic Align program or LDRD program, and we also have a Center for Integrated Nanotechnology, or you call it CINT, that you can apply for CINT is a user facility that has a state-of-the-art characterization tools and synthetic tools. I think you can write a proposal to be a user at a CINT, and that is another way to develop collaborative research and help you to fix your technical problems on like material characterizations and synthesis.
Yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention earlier as well.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
The other part of my collaboration with Sandia Labs is that I have included them as industrial partners on a couple of different grants now, where there's not explicit funding going to Sandia Labs, but having them there as an industrial partner, in particular on an NSF grant, and then also on a NASA grant that I've just gotten funded, has been really beneficial because it allows me to tell a much stronger story to the funder about potential applicability and interest in the theoretical methods that I'm putting together. So it's, you know, results of this ongoing collaboration are, I think, mutually beneficial.
Okay. Any other points from the panelists? Okay. With that, I want to remind people that you can type a question into the chat, or if you have a question at this point, I think if you click on the piece that says participants at the bottom of your screen, you get a list of the participants, and at the bottom of that list, there's a little thing to raise your hand, and then we can just see who has a question or a comment, and you can then unmute yourself, and we can go from there. So do I have any questions or comments? Julia asks, can faculty who are not US citizens work with Sandia? And I'm putting that out to the panel. I don't know if Diane, if you can answer that.
I can address that. So we absolutely can work with faculty who are not U.S. citizens. It depends on where the funding stream comes from and what the rules for that particular program are. There are constraints we have to have about consideration of what country that faculty is a member of, which require us to do some spot checks and investigation, but generally we can work with someone from almost any country.
Okay. Another question that I've heard before, and some of you addressed this to a certain extent. Some of you have relationships, for instance, Hong Yu, you went to UNM, and Ed, I think you went to UNM, so you knew some people back and forth. If you're brand new to UNM, how do you start? How do I find somebody at Sandia? And I'm putting that out to any of you.
So I can say that.
I find that, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
All right, Jason, you go.
Well, I find that, you know, there's just no way to beat the using personal networks. You know, if you're a faculty member, new faculty member at UNM, probably the best thing to do would be simply to ask the head of your department, like, you know, hey, I want to make a connection to Sandia. Who are the other faculty members who can help me out? And I just think that that it's a process you have to kind of like repeat, and it's okay to cold call Sandia employees. I've been cold called, you know, for a variety of things, from Sandia work to IEEE type of involvements, and I think that's probably the most effective way to make a connection.
Okay, Miko, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think that this is a very good point. I know that I was a beneficiary of this because the first Sandia project I got pulled into was because my senior colleague pulled me in and helped me make some contacts. So things like the VPRO top-up funding, I think, are particularly useful for this because it gives us an opportunity to pull in new faculty and help them make their own personal network at Sandia.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just second that idea of the cold call or just sending emails. I'm part of an ARPA-E project that's not with UNM, but someone from University of Kentucky emailed someone at Sandia, and the email bounced around, and they were looking for someone who had expertise and interest in cement chemistry, which was me. And so the email bounced around probably to 5 or 6 people, and it landed, you know, in my inbox, and we connected and wrote the proposal. So yeah, I would just second that idea of, you know, cold calling or just trying to send an idea out into the network and seeing what happens.
Okay.
I would add that it would be good, and I need to do this again myself, but it would be good to be sure that your own website is sort of up to date and fairly accurate for things you're doing or interested in, because I've been cold called by people from Sandia. I'm looking, that's how I got my current ARPA-E funding with them, right? They knew about my agricultural work and other stuff and contacted me that way. So it's it being accessible and easy to find out what we do ourselves is an easy way for Sandia folks to find us.
Okay. A couple questions in the chat. One was, and I think this is back to you, Diane. What about green card holders? Are the rules the same in terms of working with them?
The rules are generally the same. We have a little more leeway for green card holders. There are still some programs that really do require full citizenship and some that don't. And so it's done on a case-by-case basis. It just depends.
Okay. And then another one from Daniel. I haven't been able to provoke responses from possible Sandia Albuquerque collaborators. Are the same mechanisms, LDRD, ACORN, also available if I want to reach out to Sandia Livermore?
So I can answer that. Sandia is one lab, so our LDRD program doesn't distinguish between sites, and the ACORN project is part of the LDRD project, so there is no site restrictions one way or the other in terms of our programs.
So Diane, as a follow-up to that, if a faculty member's done some cold calling and isn't getting a response, is it an option to reach out to you directly and see if you can find and facilitate a connection?
That's always an option, and I end up doing that and trying to help people where I can. That doesn't guarantee response, but I'm happy to put my voice into the pile and help make it happen.
Okay.
So
and
I have a question or and comments associated with that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So one is the question to clarify if the question asker is asking about the response in terms of like just the responsiveness of the staff member to the cold call, or the response insofar as the proposal didn't work out. That's one thing. Now, assuming he means that the response is poor responsiveness from the cold call, you know, there's probably some just general tactics you can use to improve the visibility of your email. And we all get a lot of email and stuff. One thing would be to maybe find a paper that the person wrote that's in the subject area that you're interested in, and just make it clear that you're familiar with their work. And those emails kind of stand out a little bit more. I get cold called a lot, but I pay more attention to the ones that have maybe a little bit more homework in them.
Thank you. Daniel, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the comments. And really, I've done, or really, the question relates to a couple of the mechanisms here. I reached out to Diane and forwarded my stuff. I cold called people. I talked to people at conferences. And I fully understand it may just be that what I'm doing is not interesting for people at Sandia, hence my question with Livermore. But it's a good idea to keep cold calling, but making it more interesting. Maybe a follow-up question there with ACORN and a matchmaking then that would be initiated. Is there some database that I should try to get myself into so that whoever does that, Diane or someone else, actually knows how to match me or anyone else to young staff at Sandia?
So I have a couple answers to your questions. I'll address the last one first, and then I want to go back and hit another point from your earlier comments. There is no database you need to be a member of. We go through our selected LDRDs, and then this is a late summer process, and we look at the ones that we want to try and match. I then send those program descriptions out to the deans and department chairs, and it's up to them to circulate the request to their faculty that fit the requirements for being new faculty. So I do rely on the university to take care of that distribution for us, and then proposals are sent to me for consideration. So there is no database. We don't do the matching. We have UNM do the matching per their interpretation of the new faculty that they would like to include and promote, and who matches up to the projects that we send out. So that addresses that one. In terms of not getting a response, I would like to just make this point. It comes up often talking with faculty, is to remember that we are funded by the government, and the wheels of the government move very slowly. So sometimes if you don't hear back, it isn't because you aren't being considered or people aren't interested. It's simply the wrong part of the funding cycle, or decisions haven't been made yet. So, you know, if I send out a call that gets distributed through department chairs down to faculty, and you guys send me information, I do get it sent to the people it needs to be sent to, but it may be months before they are ready to respond to it. So patience is a real virtue here and a requirement. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pulse and follow up and say, hey, I haven't heard anything. Am I still being considered? But please remember that we get new funding in only once a year, and that is the beginning of our fiscal year in October 1. That is when our funding cycle begins. We typically make funding decisions in the summer, both for LDRD and for the programs that we expect will be coming down the line the next year. So if we have something come up in March, we may not be able to fund that right away. And in fact, if it's not in the funding call for the next year, it may be another full fiscal year before we can get that in. So the time frame can be very long. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for us too, but we are driven by the funding cycle of the federal government.
Thank you, Diane. Another comment, question. I agree with the one-to-one connection and its power to build the connection. However, many years ago, Sandia UNM had a program named as SURP, S-U-R-P, and it was a good incentive to many junior faculty to seek the connections to Sandia. Are any of you familiar with that program, this past one?
Yeah, so I can address that one as well. We were allowed to do the CERT program for a large number of years, which was immensely helpful for connecting new faculty into Sandia mission needs. That is no longer allowed for us to do by the federal government. We simply cannot write that into our funding and do it through the same process. Our new ACORN process is our attempt to reconstruct some of that. It is greatly reduced compared to what the CERT program was, but at this point in time, it's the best that we can do to recreate that program.
Thank you. Another question from Liz: when submitting a user proposal to facilities such as SINT, for example, are there prerequisites such as having a connection with a Sandia researcher? Does anyone have any additional helpful tips for submitting these proposals? So any of you who have worked with SINT or are connected with SINT.
I can answer that question. So I'm a affiliated science at the SINT. You don't need any preconditions or any connections. You just go to, for submitting a user proposal. Go to SINT website, and they have listed all the capabilities and people expertise on the website. And they also listed the contact information like email and phone number. So you can contact them and discuss your idea and find out the capability that you propose to use. And of course, if you know the person, that's definitely benefit. So it will be great that you have a connection. But again, even you don't have a connection, you're okay to propose any idea. And I think the website lists all the capabilities, both at Sandia and Los Alamos. Let's see, does anyone have any? So I think go to the website and learn about the capability, and contact person is very important before you start your proposal.
Okay.
Let me say a few words about that too.
Mm-hmm. Go for it, Julia.
I was chair of the SENT Science Advisory Committee for years. And a couple of things. It is a priority for them to develop new users. That's one of the metrics from DOE. So that's, you know, if you're a new user, that's actually an advantage for SENT. Take advantage of the fact that they are only 4 miles down the road. They are outside the gate. So it is easy to get there, and it is much easier to go in and visit since they are not on the Air Force Base. And it is also their job to help people develop proposals. So don't hesitate to contact whoever is the contact person for the capability you need and talk to them, or arrange to go out and see the facility and talk to them in more detail, because they're happy to help. And that really, really is part of how they are supposed to spend their time. And developing new projects is one of their metrics.
Thank you. Miko, I have a question for you. I think it was you who mentioned including Sandia scientists on proposals as collaborators in some fashion. If you include them as collaborators, does that make the process, the UNM process of getting a proposal submitted, more complex?
So it depends on the mechanism that you use. So for NSF, my NSF proposal, they were, they provided a letter of support. So they weren't an NSF defined collaborator. Now I had to integrate those letters of support into my proposal and make arrangements to be sure that that was all consistent. But having that was very useful. So I have a big NSF project right now, a 5-year project, and Sandia is one of our 3 industrial partners. And that made huge inroads in terms of the program managers viewing our proposal as actually having more impact than just writing a bunch of papers at the end. For the NASA ULI that I am part of, my contact at Sandia agreed to be part of an advisory board, which is also, it was a comparable $6 million grant over 4 years. And so we needed to have some mechanism showing that industrial and national lab members have a way of providing guidance to us. And so these unfunded mechanisms have a lot of credibility and are dependent on having a solid relationship because they're spending this time and not getting direct compensation for it.
And that is the case that if you're getting federal funding, it cannot go to the Sandia scientists.
Right.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments from any of our folks on the call? Okay. It's funny when you can't. Go ahead.
This is Jason, sorry. I wanted to follow up just with, I don't know how valuable this comment is, but just following up with what Nico indicated about being participating in an external advisory board or providing support and indicating that support through a letter for NSF grants and such, that on the Sandia side, it's actually quite easy for us to do those things. And so I've participated in a couple of proposals in that regard, and those are pretty low effort engagements. Very easy for us to do.
That's good to know. Thank you. Do you have to get approval from your management to do that?
Yes.
Okay. One more question. Can faculty volunteer to do virtual seminars at Sandia this summer?
I think that we would love to look into exploring that possibility. We can't use Zoom. Our preferred mechanism is Skype, but yes, I'd be happy to explore that.
Okay. Those of you who participated or were students at UNM and got connected with Sandia through that, can you, or have students, do you have feedback from students about the value of spending time either at Sandia or working with Sandia scientists?
Okay, I can comment on, I can answer that question. So I have a lot of students from UNM in the past. And the comments back is intern at Sandia really helped them to develop future career. And like I mentioned, some of the students joined Sandia as a staff member and technologist. And some of the students went further for graduate school, and they can get research experiences in when they do the interns, and also get supporting letters from the mentor at Sandia National Lab. So overall, the feedback is very positive and help them develop their career and future plan.
Thank you. Anybody else have any different responses?
Yeah, I think that having been as an undergrad, my experience at Sandia was the reason the support of my technical mentor was the reason I wound up going to graduate school and becoming interested in research. I was lucky enough to work on a grand challenge LDRD at a time when cross-cutting research was emerging. It wasn't quite as prevalent as it is now, and it just kind of got me hook, line, and sinker interested in the research process. So I think it's really valuable. The only downside I've seen is that we've had several UNM interns in our group. Once they get into Sandia, they seem to be less interested in doing PhDs. We've seen a bunch of students that get comfortable and realize that if they get a master's, that can be a quicker entryway into Sandia than getting a PhD. So that's the only downside to it that I can think of.
They learn the benefits of the salary. Okay, anybody? I'm going to ask the panelists I'm going to go back through, and if you have any sort of concluding thoughts about your collaborations across the institutions and the value to you and your career for having done those collaborations. And let's go in the opposite order. So Hangyu, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I feel through the collaboration and my special position as a National Lab professor really helped me connected to the outside world, the academic institutions outside Sandia, and I have been successful to get several NSF projects and being able to work with other universities and widely different departments at UNM. And that really helped me to develop my own career. And I would be very happy to continue to work with UNM and help them to develop the collaborative research. And if there's need, please feel free to let me know if you need some supporting, like supporting letters, and even not engage in the main research. So I will be very happy to help them.
Thank you. Ed.
Yeah, I agree with Hangyu. You know, I was a postdoc when I started collaborating with UNM, and so I was, in a lot of ways, I was mentored by some senior UNM faculty. So it undoubtedly helped my career. And so I think that again, the proximity effect is also really beneficial. I collaborate with a lot of universities, and the collaboration at UNM is fruitful in part because we're able to meet face to face with such frequency. And like Hangyu said, you know, sometimes it's you know, going back to the cold call thing, you know, if anyone thinks I'm even remotely close to an area that they're interested in collaborating with, if it's not me, you know, most Sandians want to help make those connections. So again, just take that leap and send me an email or any of the people on this panel, not that I'm speaking for them, but you know, take a stab, and typically you'll see that it gets passed on to try and find the right person. So I'm happy to help in that regard too.
Thank you. Miko.
Yes, so I think that my collaboration with Sandia has been very beneficial to my career. I'm very thrilled to be working with them. I'm all for building a stronger cohort of folks in the area in autonomy and controls. And it's a wonderful resource for the students. I think that collaborating and taking advantage and leveraging our respective strengths makes a lot of sense. And I'll reiterate, as per the other panelists as well, that if I can be a facilitator of some of those connections for folks who have an interest in the research area that I'm familiar with, I'm always happy to pass along those contacts and facilitate that.
Thank you. Jason?
Yeah, so as I indicated earlier, I've been collaborating with UNM in a variety of ways. Starting off with IEEE, helping with the Solar Splash team, teaching a class, and recruiting from there, and then eventually doing collaborative projects through LDRD and ARPA-E. And I'd say, though, that probably the common theme across a lot of that work is that most of my success is tied up in being able to build up, good, effective teams. And I've seen UNM as being a good resource for that, both for doing good technical work and then also, identifying the next wave of really talented people. And it's really through building larger teams that you can do bigger and better things. But it also had a lot of benefit for me in terms of my career. As an example, like maybe about 10 years or so ago, I was only writing about 3 or 4 papers a year, and I would be the first author on all of them. But in 2017, I had 17 papers, but I wasn't first author on most of them. That's because I was relying on a lot of these different teams, and a large fraction of that was work that was done through Sandia and UNM collaborations, written by the students that worked in the ECE department and the professors there. And so yeah, and to reuse Miko's word, cohort, today I have a pretty strong cohort in extreme environment power systems development. So my work with UNM has helped me out quite a bit.
Thank you. And Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been from the very start. The SERPs were very helpful in the beginning to make some good connections. But over the years, I've really enjoyed the access to some really cutting edge technologies and materials, things that both myself and my students have been able to get access to, and had sort of fun things to talk about. It even has helped in the kinds of things I can talk about with some intelligence in classrooms, with some of the microscopy and other technologies that are there. So it's been really valuable, and it's as in the last couple of years, it's ended up to having several concurrently funded grants with them, which has grown my program a lot.
Okay, thanks. And Diane, would you like to add a few words?
Yes, I just wanted to add that, my job is to be here to help. So please feel free to reach out to me. I will do whatever I can or find someone who can help. And, this job is what I do every day, all day, and I enjoy it. So please reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I am present down on campus at least once the social distancing restrictions are lifted again. Every Thursday, I'm down in Centennial Engineering in the Engineering Student Services pod, so feel free to drop by and see me then or shoot me an email, either way.
Thanks, Diane. For everybody who's on the call, if I hit the buttons correctly, we will have a recording of this meeting that will be posted on the Advance website. And so Advance really appreciates everybody taking the time to participate. Julia, do you want to wrap us up?
We're going to get there.
Yep.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks to all the panelists and to Mary Jo. I learned a few things I didn't know, so it was good. And I now have a one page
You're breaking up on us.
on how to with D. See if I get somewhere where it might be better.
Well, you froze, and unfortunately your picture was with your mouth open. Oh, now you're moved.
Okay. I'll try one more time. I was going to say, I actually have developing in my head a one-page guide on how to get started with Sandia based on the suggestions from today. So, you know, at some point, I'll work with Mary Jo and Diane on that, and we'll see if we can get something developed and posted where people can have easy access to some ideas and links as they join UNM.
Great. And, you know, if questions occur to you, those of you who are on the call, after you've had a chance to sleep or 6 months down the line, don't hesitate to shoot an email to Advance, and we'll try to follow up with whomever is most appropriate to help facilitate those connections.
Absolutely. It's just advance@unm.edu.
Right. And so we're ending at 1:15 as opposed to 1:30, but that's because normally we would have taken 15 minutes to eat lunch. So please enjoy your lunches if you haven't already, and stay safe, have a good holiday weekend, and stay healthy. And again, thank you to all of our panelists for being willing to try this format and to put up with the challenges it involves. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And bye-bye.